So now let's do our jump as well. So let's go if is grounded and input dot get key. Let's go get key down because we don't want to call this lots of times. Let's press the tab because it's helpful, and then we're going to go key code space. So when you press the space bar, if the player is grounded, we're going to apply a jump. And we've ended up with one too many brackets here, I feel. No, one too little. Okay, let's put this one underneath so it's a bit easier to read. And then we want to grab the rigid body. And we're going to add a force to it. Going to add vector free dot up times jump force. And then we're going to do force mode impulse. Perfect. And then we're going to set is grounded to false. So when the player presses the space bar, we're going to add a force in the up direction multiplied by the jump force, which is set to 5 currently. And then the force mode is impulse, which means it applies all the force in a singular impulse of force right at the start. And then we're going to set our is grounded variable to false because we're checking if it's grounded. So we still do need to make a system to allow you to jump a second time, but let's go into Unity first and see how this works. We'll save our code so it loads into Unity. We'll grab the player. We're going to attach the player controller script. We're going to drag the player into the rigid body so that the rigid body is declared. And we're going to, let's get rid of our cube temporarily, just turning him off. So let's see what happens. So, alright, so we can move the player with AWSD. And then we can't jump at the moment. Why can't we jump? So sometimes this happens, you write code and it doesn't do what you want it to do. So I'm guessing, let's look at the player's mass. So the player is grounded. So we should be able to play a jump. Let's add more force. No, we're not getting the input. So, oh, that's better. Clicked onto the thing. This is never getting called. Okay, so let's see why we're never entering that code. If is granted and input get key down space. We're calling jump frame. Alright, let's remove parts and see what happens. Rest of working. Oh, there we go. Okay. It is calling it, but not very well. That's really weird. It's sometimes calling it. That's what I thought. You should be able to just keep jumping. Okay. Let's try again. Let's go 50. Alright. Let's change this. Let's just go get key. Because what I think is happening is because we're only calling this, sometimes the key down is not aligning with the fixed update, and so it's not getting called. Okay. There we we go. Okay. Now, it got called really fast because we're using get key and we didn't put our condition back in. So let's go is grounded and add. Okay. So this time it should allow us to jump once. Very good. And then we can't jump again without setting this to true. And then we can jump again. Alright, so we can now jump with our player. So now let's go onto the player and go create empty. I'm going to call this game object ground trigger. Let's move around and get a bit closer. Let's add a box collider. Oh, wrong type of box collider. Let's move this collider. Actually, let's just move the whole trigger down. Let's move it down like that, so it's just a little bit lower than the bottom of the player. Perfect. Let's set it to is trigger, and then we're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call this ground check. Okay, I didn't want to come back in here yet, but let's just open that, minimize again. Okay, so we're happy with that positioning. Perfect. So now we're going to have to use some tags, because otherwise you'll see that the player is constantly in. He won't enter the trigger a second time. Let's do the good practice button. Let's go tag and go add tag. I'm going to add the tag player. So I didn't save. Player and save. We're going to tag the player. And then we're going to go back to our scripts. We're going to open the ground check. And we're going to get rid of all of this. But we are going to store a... So we're going to have a serialized field, because we only want this to be private. Player controller. And then we're going to go on trigger enter if other dot game object dot tag does not equal player. Then we want to access our player. So we've called our player controller variable controller. This is a reference to the other script. So we're going to go call it controller dot is grounded, and we're going to set that equal to true. And we're going to save that and go back. We're going to click on the ground trigger. We're going to add the grounded check script to it. We're going to drag the player so it knows the player controller script that it's talking to. And then we're going to click back onto our player and press play. So we better look at what's going on. But when we press space, we can jump. And we can see that each time we meet the ground, it's checking our box by itself again. But now I can't keep jumping in the air. Whereas before, if we go back in our player controller and remove this, where it doesn't need a ground check, and we play, if I held down the space button, I could keep jumping midair and just shoot our player into the sky. See you in the next video.